Hey everyone, I hope you had a good first week of the online portion. I'm sorry for the glare on my glasses, but I'm sitting here in my kitchen in Mississippi. After I finish sharing on reading and writing, if you want to stay online for a minute longer, I'll introduce my husband and some of the kittens just for fun. But anyway, if you have the handout pulled up, let's go ahead and get started. So we're going to look at reading research, research reading first, the key issues. So reading is an internal activity, meaning it's a product of a text read in the mind of the reader. Research has moved from psycholinguistic research, which looks at internal cognitive processes, to more socially, culturally, and multiculturally oriented research, or called sociocultural research. The term literacy can be used, but sometimes infers writing and speaking in the definition as well. Within applied linguistics, L2 research has leaned heavily on the L1. Therefore, research is sometimes called multilingual literacy research instead of second language reading research. However, there are three issues specific to second language reading: transfer, processing of words, sentences, and text in the L2 influenced by characteristics of the reader's L1, and effects of bilingualism, which they're all listed below. L2 reading issues are due to more than one language and culture. Transfer looks at learners' ability to transfer knowledge and skills. Processing of words looks at how students identify with the writing systems. And bilingualism looks at the acquisition of literacy in the classroom. Below, I have explained what researchers look at under each issue. I'm not going to go into reading these just for the sake of time, but each of these sections lists an example of a study. The book also lists these in more detail and more. You can look on page 6,605 for transfer. You can look on page 6,627 for processing of words, sentences, and text. And you can look at page 6,633 for effects of bilingualism. But moving on to research areas, there are 7 areas, and they start on page 6,662. For more examples of these studies on each, I have listed one example just for each. But the first research area is lexical, which focuses on various aspects of the relationship between vocabulary and reading comprehension. Fluency, the ability to read rapidly with ease and accuracy. Discoursal, area focuses on discoursal aspects of reading, such as text structure and background knowledge. Strategic, which focuses on readers' knowledge and the use of reading strategies, meaning activities and behaviors that readers engage in to assist them in comprehending a text, like predicting text content. Strategies are thought to be related to metacognition, which is readers' ability to reflect on and control their reading process. Moving on to affective, focuses on aspects of reading like motivation and attitudes. Intermodal focuses on reading in relation to other traditional modalities like writing, listening, and speaking, as well as in relation to digital modalities like hypertext and visual images. Sociocultural focuses on aspects of reading like home, classroom, and community literacy practices. It is often carried out from a social justice or educational policy perspective. Moving to research techniques. The first was the process-oriented technique. This infers readers' internal cognitive processes through observation, measurement of the time taken to respond to stimuli, or measurement of psychological responses like eye movement or the electrical activities of the brain. There are 3 types of process-oriented techniques. First one, verbal or think aloud protocols. Observational technique. This is an observational technique that involves readers verbalizing thoughts about the text they are reading. This can be concurrent or retrospective. Last week was the first time I heard of this, so I found it interesting that the book stated it has been criticized for being disruptive to natural reading process and for providing only fragmentary representation of what actually goes on in a reader's mind when reading. There are also issues of validity, saying learners may not have accurate recall. The next one is eye tracking. The reader wears a device that enables the measurement of eye movements made while reading. And then speed measures. The speed with which processing is carried out is generally measured to be a reflection of readers' fluency. The next technique, I guess, is product-oriented techniques. It measures comprehension of reading or of a component of reading. It has two categories. Comprehension measures, the first one, seek to gain insight into the quality of the reader's mental representation of a text, and it has two subcategories: short response measures and extended production response measures. The short response measures are multiple choice comprehension tests, closed tests, which restore words in the text that have been deleted, which is different than gap filling, and then short answer questions, yes/no questions, choosing from a heading bank for identified paragraphs, and flowchart diagram completion. The extended response measures are recall, free recall, and summarization. The other the other category is knowledge component measures. And they seek to gain insight into the level of knowledge that a reader processes concerning a component that is relevant to reading, like vocabulary or grammatical knowledge. There are lower order linguistic aspects and higher order conceptual aspects. The lower order could be vocabulary, grammar, and spelling. The higher order is topic knowledge, or metacognitive aspects like knowledge of reading strategies. Moving on to the next chapter, researching writing. It starts out with assumptions, writing, and research. Methods are inseparable from theories and how we understand writing itself. And we're going to look at a few of the research methods. There's text-oriented research. Writing is an outcome of activity as words on a page or screen and can be descriptive, analytical, or critical. Texts are examined by looking at particular features or their themes, cohesive elements, or move structures. You can examine a text in isolation or as a sample from a single genre, time period, or writer. Then there's writer-oriented research. This emphasizes the actions of writers rather than the features of text. There's a belief that writing constitutes a process, or at least a complex of activities, from which all writing emerges, and that this is generalizable across contexts of writing. The next 3 bullet points go on to explain recent research and methods to looking at writers' experiences in specific context, which fails to capture the culture and event in which the writing occurs. I'll let you read those, but texts function communicatively at the time they are composed, not when they are read. As a writer writes, they anticipate particular readers and the responses of those readers to what is written. As a result, most current writing research takes a more reader-oriented view. So we'll look at the reader-oriented research, which looks beyond individual writers and the surface structures of product to see text as examples of discourse or language in use. Reader-oriented research recognizes that texts are always a response to a particular communicative setting and seek to reveal the purpose and function which linguistic forms serve in text. Texts are the concrete expression of social purposes intended for particular audiences. The writer has certain goals and intentions, certain relationships to his or her readers, and certain information to convey. And the forms a text takes are resources used to accomplish these. Writing is seen as meditated by the institutions and cultures in which it occurs, and every text is embedded in wider social practices which carry assumptions about writer-reader relationships and how these should be structured. Moving on to methods. Much writing research combines several methods, often both quantitative and qualitative, to gain a more complete picture of a complex reality. Triangulation can bring greater plausibility to the interpretation of results. It tends to favor data gathered in naturalistic or authentic circumstances rather than controlled conditions. So the first one is elicitation, questionnaires, and interviews. The main methods for eliciting information and attitudes from informants. Questionnaires are usually quantitative, collecting large amounts of structured, often numerical, easily analyzable self-report data. Useful for explanatory studies into writing attitudes and behaviors, and for identifying issues that can be followed up later by more in-depth methods. Interviews, usually qualitative, have more flexibility and greater potential for elaboration and detail, more interactive and less predetermined modes of listening information, and generally represent a different way of understanding human experience regarding knowledge as generated between people rather than as objectified and external to them. Participants are able to discuss their interpretations and perspectives, sharing what writing means to them rather than responding to preconceived categories. Interviews are used in research to learn more about writing, about teaching and learning practices, and about discourse features. Interviews reveal issues that might be difficult to predict. Moving to introspection, verbal and written reports or diaries. Verbal reports are the process of writing, verbal reports, I'll just say the process of writing requires conscious attention, and that at least some of the thought process involved can be recovered, either as a retrospective written or spoken recall, or simultaneously with writing as a think aloud protocol. Protocols involve participants writing in their normal way, but instructed to verbalize all thinking at the same time so that information can be collected on their decisions, their strategies, and their perceptions as they work. These are criticized as offering an artificial and incomplete picture of the complex cognitive activities. However, they are productive in revealing the strategies writers use when composing, particularly what students do when planning and revising texts. Diaries are an alternative way of gaining introspective data, first-person accounts of a language-using experience, and documented through regular entries in a journal and then analyzed for reoccurring patterns or significant events. Diarists can be asked to produce narrative entries which freely introspect on their learning or writing experiences, or set guidelines to restrict the issues addressed. It can be in the form of detailed points to note or a loose framework for response. Alternatively, researchers may ask diarists to concentrate only on critical incidents of personal significance, or to simply record dates and times of writings. Observations offer actual evidence of it by systematic documentation of participants engaged in writing and learning to write. They are based on conscious noticing and precise recording of actions as a way of seeing these actions in a new light. They are often combined with other methods. Like with diaries, there are degrees of structure the researcher can impose on the data, like simply checking predefined boxes at fixed intervals or every time a type of behavior occurs, to writing a full narrative of events. There's three more. Text data, which is the use of text as objects of study, which is literally just looking at the written text. Then genre analysis embraces a range of tools and attitudes to text, from detailed qualitative analysis of a single text to more quantitative counts of language features. Usually, it's a case study, but it raises questions about how far a single text can be representative of a genre. Representativeness is strengthened if several texts are analyzed and corpus analysis is used. Corpus analysis is further explained next. and it is qualitative and quantitative. It's a collection of naturally occurring language samples consisting of millions of words, which represent a speaker's experience of language in some restricted domain, thereby providing a more solid basis of genre descriptions. It provides an alternative to intuition by offering both a resource against which intuitions can be tested and a mechanism for generating them. This enables analysts to depict what is usually in a genre rather than what is simply grammatically possible, and helps to suggest explanations for why language is used as it is in particular contexts. You can also use evidence of frequency and association as starting points for interpretation. Frequency is based on the idea that if a word, string, or grammatical pattern occurs regularly in a particular genre or subset of language, then we can assume it is significant in how that genre is routinely constructed. And association refers to the ways features associate with each other and collocation patterns. The next bullet point goes into how to use this in research, and you can look at page 7183 for a detailed example study. That wraps all this up. I know I went through it very quickly, and I also said a lot that wasn't necessarily typed, just to give a little bit more detail to some things. I'm going to upload both of the documents, the one that's just the handout and then the one of everything extra I said, if you feel like you want both of them or would rather have the one of everything I said. If you plan to research either of these topics, I would definitely read these chapters because there's a lot of information there, kind of like what Sasha said last week about her chapters. If not, I hope you got the most valuable information from the book, or from what I've given you in this handout from the book. I look forward to hearing your questions. If you're staying on to meet Micah and see the kittens, then I'm going to holler for them now. Micah! I'll take out my headphones so you can see him. This is my husband.
Hi.
And his name is Micah, by the way, which I've probably said 100 times. And these are our kids! Well, that one's crying. This one's... Say hello! There are 3 weeks tomorrow.
Yeah.
Anyways, I hope you guys have a good second week. We'll see you guys later. Bye.